The owner of this car came in because he had just failed a safety inspection after he had his friend convert his stock exhaust system into a stock exhaust system with a sportier sound. Customer came in saying that they had just bought the car off Facebook Marketplace and had picked up one of their friends to take it for a little joyride when they suddenly heard a loud metallic noise followed by the hood flying open. The owner of this Toyota Sienna rolled into the shop because of a brake leak after he had tried replacing brake calipers, brake rotors, and pads by himself, but had just made a mess. The owner of this GMC Sierra rolled in because he had a clunking sound when turning after he had done some suspension work on it, all by himself. And this car rolled in after the owner said his wife thinks she hit something on her way to yoga class, and this is what the mechanics found. This customer came in saying that their car has started to run really hot lately and asked the mechanics to have a look. Customer states, "It's easier to go wakeboarding with two turtles strapped to my feet than it is to steer and stop my truck." This Chevy SUV rolled in after the customer said it had started to accelerate really badly ever since they let their buddy tune it for cheap. The owner of this SUV rolled in because they have a loud growling noise at 30 miles per hour after they had installed new chrome lug nuts to match their new summer rims, which they just bought off eBay. Customer came in saying that their car wiggles and rocks a lot during acceleration after their grandson had driven it for a couple of months while they were visiting some family abroad. Customer states, has to constantly pump up his front tire and thinks there's a piece of glass stuck in the tire. This car came in because the customer complained about a loud noise when going into third gear, and this is what the mechanics found. And this guy had just installed new brake rotors and pads by himself, but had not replaced the brake shields and now complained about a screechy noise at all speeds. This car came in because of a clunking sound after the owner's wife had hit a curb going 40 miles an hour. Customer states, friend of theirs adjusted the ride height recently and the car has handled strange ever since. The mechanics found the strut top mount bolts to be missing. Yikes. This poor car rolled in because it needed new rims and tires after the customer had driven past a construction site and hit a large bulk bag full of construction debris. Customer states, car runs poorly and runs out of gas even though the gas tank is full. Please advise. The mechanics discovered that the problem was caused by candy that somebody had dropped into the customer's fuel tank. The owner of this Hyundai Tucson came in for some exhaust repairs when the mechanic noticed that it has some major problems with the subframe. This customer came in after they failed a safety inspection test. I wonder why. The owner of this car came in because he had starting issues and also a problem with his trailer hitch connector not working, after his friend recently tried installing a rear view camera for him. Customer came in saying that their little cousin had helped them do a yearly service on their car, but that there was some minor trouble in tightening the air filter box and that the car has not felt the same ever since. This Chevy Silverado came in because the four-wheel drive had stopped working after the owner had taken it on a hunting trip to the mountains and thinks he might have hit a rock or two on the way. Customer states, car shuts itself off randomly and is really hard to start. The mechanics discovered that someone had recently replaced the fuel pump but had missed a couple of parts, which caused the issue. When finding the cause of your broken air condition is harder than finding a needle in a haystack. I wonder what the problem might be. This car came in on a tow truck after the customer said that she had lost all keys to it and wanted new ones programmed, but it only took the mechanic about 5 minutes to fix the problem. The owner of this Honda rolled in for an oil change, but when the mechanics went to remove the belly pan, they saw that the customer had secured it with the help of a few straps and plenty of inspiration from Leonard Skinner and Pop's Blue Ribbon. Customer states, "Drop my lucky coin in one of the air vents. Please check and advise." This guy had his friend come over and do an oil change for him on his parking spot, but once he left, he noticed a puddle of oil and later found out that his friend had forgot to install the oil filter. And this customer said that she can't refuel her truck no matter how much she tries. And this Mazda rolled in because it overheated after the customer poured water into the engine and coolant tank. And luckily, this was the lift's last day at work before getting replaced. And this car came in because it had started to run hot and smoke was coming out of the grill. Customer states, "Strange rattling sound coming from back seat when driving at higher speeds. Please check and advise." The owner of this car rolled in saying that he has had to replace 2 batteries in the course of 2 months after his cousin had helped him install a used sound system in his car, and this is what the mechanics found. Customer came in with their Volkswagen saying, "But a little rocking is normal, right? It's a diesel after all." The owner of this car declined all repairs, saying that he thinks the mechanic is over-exaggerating how bad his brakes really are. This customer rolled in after they had installed a new sport exhaust system on their truck and wanted the mechanic to have a look and make sure it all looked good. And this customer had just purchased this AMG Mercedes from the dealership and was on his way home when he tried to drift through a roundabout but ended up losing control of the car and slammed into a light post instead. This car was in because the customer had a clunking sound when pulling in and out of their driveway. This guy was renovating his vintage Jeep that he just purchased for $25,000 when he discovered that the undercarriage was naturally aspirated. This customer had installed some new brake calipers by himself, but had apparently misplaced the caliper bolts and had to improvise a bit instead. This customer came in with their Saturn saying that they had a clunking sound for a while, but that they had fixed it themselves and wanted the mechanics to make sure it looked alright. And when your differential starts making its own homemade vanilla milkshakes, you know you done messed something up. The owner of this car came in saying that the vanity mirror doesn't want to open. This 1994 Chevy pickup came in with starting problems after the customer's friend, who's a hobby electrician, had helped them fix the engine control unit, and this is the sketchy wiring job the mechanics found. The owner of this car came in after they hit a curb a bit faster than normal. And this car was just in for some new struts when the mechanics saw that the brakes were completely cooked. How you know that you're overdue on your radiator replacement? And this car didn't come in a moment too soon for a new timing and serpentine belt. And this car was just in to get an oil change when the situation got a bit heated for the mechanic. The owner of this Citroen C4 came into the shop saying that he has major brake issues ever since his friend, who's a hobby mechanic, had tried replacing the brake bomb and some other parts related to the car's ABS system. The technician found the brake bomb to be loose and installed without an O-ring, which had caused a brake fluid leak. The owner of this Nissan was in for an exhaust leak when the mechanic noticed that the tires were pretty well used. When told about it, the customer just replied, "You might not enjoy walking on thin ice, but I do." The owner of this car had just finished renovating the engine and had taken it out on a test drive, but immediately lost almost all the engine oil as he hadn't secured the oil plug properly. One of these is unlike the other. Can you guess which one it is? And this truck rolled in for its yearly service when the mechanic noticed that the customer had tried to change the color of the interior, all by himself, using beige spray paint. This customer said that they had tried fixing their squeaky brakes with some brake quiet, but that the squeak had only gotten worse since. Customer states, "My dinosaur needs an oil change." Customer states, strange noise whenever I go over bumps. Please advise. And this Opel finally came in for new brake rotors after the customer had stated that he had a strange sensation in his foot while braking. Customer states, gave his car a pack of Montego Reds and now it can't get enough. This pickup truck came in because it needed some body work. When asked about what had happened, the customer said, I stole a parking spot from a guy that I'd been waiting for ages, and he got a little upset with me at first, until I showed him mine and he just took off like Bugs Bunny. This customer's GMC Terrain had been pulled behind a tow truck because of a parking violation, but the tow truck driver had left it in gear, which led to one of the rear tires bursting, the rim getting split in half, and the transmission getting totally wrecked. Customer states, I am a self-taught electrician. Please help. Customer came in saying that his car accelerates sluggishly after he had installed a new sport air intake that he found on Temu. Anyone want some homemade licorice goo? Customer states, engines telling knock-knock jokes again. The owner of this Ford F-150 came in with quite the list of problems after they apparently hit a stone Spider-Man garden sculpture while taking a shortcut on an unmarked road. This customer had tried driving through a large pool of water that had formed underneath a bridge after a rainstorm and said that he immediately regretted what he did once he saw water coming into the driver's cab. The mechanic drained the engine of the watery oil cocktail, but the water damage was so extensive that the engine had locked up. Fortunately, the customer got a new engine installed through their insurance company. Customer states, always does his own maintenance work, but has been getting a burnt rubber smell recently and wanted it looked at. This car rolled in because the rear 12-volt outlet needed to be repaired, but this is how the rear seat looked like. This customer came in with their new project car that they bought the day before and wanted the mechanic to do a full inspection of it to make sure everything was fine. This guy came into the shop saying that he wanted an oil change on his truck as he was preparing to sell it soon. The mechanics asked him how much he wanted for it and he said around 19 to 22,000. And the owner of this car had tuned up their exhaust system a bit because they wanted their car to sound unique. Customer rolled into the shop all worried, saying he thinks he has a major oil leak somewhere because no matter how much engine oil he adds, the dipstick is always dry. The mechanics discovered that the customer had slid the dipstick in beside the dipstick tube. Customer states, car started sounding like a tractor overnight. Please check and advise. The Siliconator strikes again. And the owner of this car had installed some new brake hoses, all by themselves, but had to come in 3 days later because they now didn't have any brakes at all. And the owner of this car came in saying that he thinks his car has more to give, because flooring it doesn't really feel like flooring it. And this customer rolled in because they had a clunking sound when turning, after they recently had outer tie rod ends installed at another shop. Turns out they were barely even installed. And this Hyundai Sonata came in because the owner said he hears a clunking sound when going over speed bumps, after another shop had installed a sportier suspension kit on it. Customer states, I've had a small tire leak since last Friday when I hit a curbside a bit harder than what I normally do. Please check and advise. Customer states, brakes make a horrible noise anytime he brakes hard. The mechanic inspected the brakes and found that the brake pads needed replacement, but he also noticed that the customer had tried saving a few bucks by attaching cheaper brake pads onto the factory ones. And this car came in with some strange noises when going over speed bumps after the owner's son had borrowed it to go on a cross-country mini vacation with his friends. This minivan came in because the front wheels had locked up and caused a flat tire while the customer had been driving to work. Once the customer got the repair quote, he thought it was way too expensive and said that he'll take it to a different shop instead. The owner of this car apparently likes to do things himself and had decided to install a new fuel pump, but had to come in 4 days later because of a starting issue. Customer dropped off his car for some new spark plugs and also asked the mechanics to have a look at one of the tensioners for the serpentine belt because his friend had apparently said that it maybe needs to be replaced due to a weird whining sound. Hey, if it works, it works. Interesting. Customerstates had a dunking sound and their brother fixed it with some petroleum jelly, but now the sound is back. The owner of this car rolled in because they have a strong gasoline smell in the driver's cab after another shop recently did some work on the exhaust system to fix a rattling sound. And this customer desperately wanted their interior to be tan instead of black, so they had taken things into their own hands. And this customer just rolled in for an oil change and an oil change only. And this customer came in saying that ever since they hit a curbside last week while going to work, their car has felt kinda strange. This car came in with quite the fuel leak and an extra drive shaft that someone had misplaced. The owner of this car said that he had just bought it used 3 days ago and that he had let his friend take it for a little spin when they suddenly heard a loud crunk sound. The owner of this vehicle said that their 7-year-old son had been fiddling with a bunch of buttons in the car and were worried that the interior lights were now broken. The owner of this Chevy Silverado wanted to lift their truck but was on a tight budget, so this is what they did. This car rolled in with some pretty bad suspension problems after the customer had driven a bit too fast on a muddy and bumpy countryside road. And the owner of this car had fixed an oil leak with an epoxy. And for this car to get a new water pump, the mechanic needed to remove the left front wheel, wheel well liner, and engine mount, raise the engine slightly, remove the air filter assembly, serpentine belt, timing belt covers, take out the old water pump, install the new water pump, and then do it all in reverse order. When your transmission fluid starts looking like this, you're lucky to still have a transmission left. Customer states, oil leak. I think I found your problem, sir. Something's not right here. And this customer tried turning on their car but said that it just kept cranking and wouldn't start. The mechanics discovered that someone had done a really bad repair job on a leaky fuel pump using some electrical tape, metal wires, tie wraps, and RTV silicone. And this customer woke up one day and decided it was a great idea to decorate his car with aluminum foil because why not? The owner of this truck rolled in for an oil change when the mechanic noticed something was off with the frame and discovered this one-of-a-kind frame repair job underneath. The owner of this Opel Corsa had gotten a great deal on it at a local auction and came in for a post-purchase inspection. Maybe not such a great deal after all. The owner of this car rolled in because they had a fuel leak after another shop had repaired and shortened the exhaust for them, which placed the tailpipe right next to the plastic fuel tank. And this customer couldn't figure out how to keep their window rolled up. And you can never have too many little tree air fresheners, right? Right? The owner of this Chevy Silverado came in with a pretty blown transmission after a friend of theirs had done some work on their transmission cooler lines 3 days before. And the owner of this car rolled in for a safety inspection, and the technicians found that someone had tried repairing the exhaust with some silicone, one of the outer tie rod ends was hanging on for dear life, the transfer case was leaking oil, and one of the lower ball joints looked like this. And the owner of this Lamborghini had done his own oil change on it, but ended up overfilling it by 35 quarts. The mechanic said that the customer doesn't even deserve to own a Fiat, tops a bicycle. This car was in for an oil change, but it turned out that it had more than just one owner. Customer states, installed new sound system and it worked great for a day or two, but then the car wouldn't start. Please check and advise. How to tell if your car is an oilaholic. Yeah, all good. Customer states, vehicle has trouble starting. Tried replacing battery with another used battery but still has starting issues. This car came in with some brake issues after the customer had parked the car on the street for a few days while they were out of town. This car rolled into the shop because it had a clunking sound when turning, and the mechanics discovered that it had a bad control arm that someone had tried to fix in a pretty cheap way. Customer was in with their truck for some brake work when the mechanic noticed a pretty strange detail. When asked about it, the customer apparently said, "It's for aerodynamic purposes." Customer rolled in with their truck saying that their cousin helped them install a Dixie horn, but that it sounds strange and wanted the mechanics to have a look. And this is apparently what a brand new clutch looks like when ordering from certain online shops these days. This truck came in with a noisy transmission after the owner said he hit some tumbleweed while on his way home from work. This customer had just done an oil change and replaced the filters by himself, but now had a strange oil leak and couldn't figure out why. And apparently, this customer's favorite movie is Mad Max. Here's your problem, sir. Customer came in saying that he has a strange rattling sound coming from the engine after a local gas station mechanic performed yearly maintenance on the car. Customer states, "I think I dropped the bass a bit too hard." This truck came into the shop because it had some electrical issues after the customer had tried to install some new backup lights, but done a pretty sketchy wiring job. Customer states, "Buddy tuned his engine for him, but now it runs a bit strange and wants us to have a look." This car came in with a bit of a leak. This taxi car rolled in because it had some issue with the taxi light that sits on the roof, and the mechanics discovered that someone had wired it in a pretty creative way, to say the least. This Lambo owner came in because of a starting issue after they had tried to install a new sound system in it that they apparently got off Team U. The owner of this Mercedes-Benz said that ever since he got a new engine installed by one of his friends, there's a loud sound whenever he floors it. This car was in for a tire repair when the mechanic saw that the customer was driving around with brake rotors and brake pads looking this bad. This car was in because the customer complained about a strange rattling sound at higher speeds after they got their engine bay cleaned by a remote car washing company. Turned out to be the battery cover that had gone on a little adventure. Ooh. The owner of this Chevy Cruze came in complaining about a burning smell and the car feeling sluggish after they recently replaced a valve cover gasket in a pretty interesting way together with their father-in-law. And some jobs are just that much easier when you don't live in the Rust Belt. This mechanic was trying to turn off this old school generator for about 2 hours before he finally got it. Simplicity. When your transmission starts making caramel drizzle milkshakes, you know it's going to be an expensive repair. The owner of this car was out driving with his wife when they suddenly hit what looked like a decorative metal duck that had fallen out of a pickup truck in front of them on the highway. And this bus driver apparently wanted to drive the tires to their very last mile. This truck was in for some new tires, but it looks like it'll need some new brakes as well. And this customer rolled in with their car in a pretty beat up condition after a few birds had gotten stuck in the driver's cab for a couple of days. This Citroen Berlingo came in because the customer said that the cabin fan and stereo randomly stops working after a while. The technician discovered that the carpets were soaking wet, so he tore out the interior and noticed that the car was flooded with water and that someone had welded the drain holes shut. This customer came in to get a price quote on a totaled car they had purchased and refurbished by themselves. The shop owner told the customer that they should go back home and continue refurbishing it some more. One of these is not like the other. DIY waterfall coming in 3, 2, 1. Customer came in complaining about a strange sound when braking and thought it might be a bad ball joint, but it turned out to be something else. This car was in because it had a rattling sound coming from the engine. And this guy brought in his car because he said that it handles strange and the mechanics found one of the sway bar links to be disconnected from reality. Customerstates drove through what looked like a small puddle, but turned out to be a clogged manhole without a cover. Please advise. I don't know what's wrong with it, it ain't got no get. Customerstates was out trolling with my boat when the engine suddenly started to sound really weird. Could you check and see what it is? This customer came in for an oil change, but the mechanic had some trouble getting into the car because of the one-of-a-kind lock system that the customer had invented himself. Customer states, really bad turbo sounds and the car accelerates like an old tractor. Customer states, car doesn't want to stop anymore, please advise. This customer had apparently designed and installed their very own anti-theft system for their classic Volkswagen. Customer states, wife borrowed the car and hit a curb. And this car definitely came in right on time for some new wheel bearings. This car rolled in with a pretty well done clutch. And this car came in with an exhaust leak and loud noises during acceleration after the customer had built and installed their own muffler. Customer came in saying that he thinks his brake rotors are fine and only wants a light touch-up of the rotors and some new brake pads installed. And this car couldn't have come in any sooner for some timing chain and tensioner work. Customer came in complaining about their new seats not having built-in heat, even though it said they did when they bought them off AliExpress. The mechanic found the seat heater pads to be stuffed inside the seats and not connected properly. And this car came in with a pretty decent oil leak after they had done an oil change at a quick lube shop that apparently forgot to tighten the oil filter properly. And this is why you should never use any tools with sharp edges to tighten your oil filter. This car owner said that he doesn't think his car is doing very well. Wait, what? Customer states, car has started to remind him of the Vietnam War. This customer's car had made its very own bologna stew in the expansion tank.